college football writer, Dennis Dodd in the flesh for us. Before we get to Nick Saban, your expectations, what do you expect to hear from him before this game against Cincinnati?
At the end, he'll thank the media for covering the team all year. He always does that. I think he's very sincere about it, but we won't learn much in the way of new information for Alabama. There aren't any injuries of note that I can think of. Brian Robinson was nicked up earlier in the season. I should mention that running game that they have is the worst statistically since 2006. That's why Bryce Young, I think, has developed so well to the point he's in the conversations being the best quarterback ever. He's still got time to play there, but it's going to be a pitch and catch with Jamison Williams and the rest of those rabbits on that receiving core. I don't know. I don't know what we'll learn much new.
Yeah, it'll probably start off scripted. He may get some questions that takes him off a little bit, and it's not often, Dennis, that Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide get to play the us against the world card, which they seemingly thought that they did against Georgia. An amazing performance. And then, of course, that coming off the Iron Bowl, which was thrilling and exciting. Where do you think this Alabama team is right now heading into the semifinals?
I think they're the best team in the country. I think they're peaking at the right time. There's a reason why they're 2 touchdown favorites against Cincinnati. They can have a slightly off day and still win. I think for Cincinnati to win, Alabama has to be an active contributor. In other words, turnovers, field position, bad decisions. I don't see that happening. I don't want to make Cincinnati sound like they're not capable, because they are. Jerome Ford played for Alabama. Their top running back, and Desmond Ridder is a top quarterback in the country. But they've got elite speed over Cincinnati, despite that secondary, which is maybe the best in the country. Not a very good offensive line for Alabama, but defensively they're rounding into shape, as you saw against Georgia.
When you look at it, of course, you mentioned there, you check all the block boxes there for Alabama. If you're looking at Cincinnati, how can they kind of give Alabama some problems? You kind of touched on it, but what are some things that really need to happen outside of the turnovers? Maybe?
I think hold the ball and in other words, time of possession, play keep away, and you play a little bit of Desmond Ridder, make him more of an active participant in the running game, make him that +1 that defense has to account for. Then it's hat on hat for Cincinnati. They're not missing a blocker against that defense.
All right, we are ready to send you out there. Nick Saban at the podium speaking with reporters and the media right now.
The 2021 College Football Playoff Semifinal at the 86th Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. Today is our head coach's news conference featuring Nick Saban of the #1 ranked Alabama Crimson Tide and Luke Fickell of the #4 ranked Cincinnati Bearcats. As a reminder to the media, please use the raise hand function to indicate you want to ask a question. When you're called on for your question, please state your name and affiliation before asking your question. Joining us first is head coach Nick Saban of Alabama. Coach, good morning. Please provide
recording in progress.
An opening statement on the eve
All
of
right.
Friday's
Good morning,
game
everybody.
before we open the
Welcome
floor
to
for
today's
questions.
head coach's press conference. On the call today, we have the head coach.
Opportunity to be involved in the Cotton Bowl here. I'd like to thank all the people of the Goodyear Cotton Bowl for all that they've done to create a lot of positive hospitality, even though, we've got circumstances that we all have to deal with. It has worked out very well. Our players seem to be, focused, practicing well, doing the things that they need to do to prepare to, play a good, very, very good, Cincinnati team who certainly competed well all season long and certainly deserves the right to, be in the playoff. And they're very well coached. Their players play hard. They play well together. So this will be a very challenging game for us.
All right, Coach, we'll get to the questions. Our first one will come from Tino Buzinzi. Tino, go ahead.
Good morning, Coach Saban. This is Tino Bovenzi from Spectrum News 1 in Ohio. I wanted to ask you about Coach Fickell and what he's been able to build in Cincinnati. You know a thing or two about building a program into something successful as he's working to do. How impressed are you with what he's been able to do at Cincinnati to get to this point? And I'll have a follow-up for you as well.
Well, I'm extremely impressed. I've always had a lot of respect and admiration for, Luke when he was a defensive coordinator. I think he's done a fantastic job of building a program. And I think, the indication of that, not knowing, sort of the internal parts of it is, when you look at what's happening on the field, the way their players play, the way they compete, the discipline that they have, You know, it's a very structured organization that's creating a lot of value and teaching a lot of people what they need to do to be successful. And, you know, that's something that we always have a tremendous amount of respect and admiration for. They obviously have a lot of really good players, so they've done a good job of, you know, attracting, you know, good talent, which is, you know, always an important part of having a good team. But that those good players are also being developed in a very positive way to help them be successful.
Yeah, of course. And I wanted to ask you about your ties to Ohio. Obviously, it goes back quite a ways. And I want to get to how did that really make you into the coach that you are today? You've had such a long coaching career, but you know that's kind of where you were. I don't want to say formed as a coach, but if you could.
No, I think you're probably right about that. You know, I played at Kent State. I started my coaching career at Kent State. You know, I always recruited Ohio, mostly Northeast Ohio, Akron, Canton, Youngstown, Cleveland. For years and years and years when I was at Michigan State, coached at Ohio State, coached the Cleveland Browns for 4 years with Bill Belichick. So, you know, there was a time when we lived in Ohio and spent so much time there that we sort of felt like we were more residents of Ohio than we were of West Virginia in terms of where we were from. And certainly professionally, if not true personally, a lot of things that helped me grow and develop as a coach, you know, happened in Ohio with all the experiences that we had. You know, Don James was an instrumental part in getting me started in coaching, and certainly learned a tremendous amount from him and Earl Bruce and Bill Belichick. So the experiences that I had as a coach in Ohio, you know, really helped mold me philosophically into a lot of things that we believe in and that we try to implement in our program.
Coach, your next question is going to come from Aaron Suttles from The Athletic.
Hey, Coach. Aaron Suttles from The Athletic. Given what we saw from the offensive line against Georgia, playing maybe their most consistent game of the year, how have they built on that? And when you got two solid players at one position like Seth and Darian, how difficult is the decision is that to who starts come game time?
Well, I think we, you know, play the player that we feel gives us the best opportunity to win versus the matchup that we have. Some of that, you know, guys have to be physically ready to play in terms of being 100%. That sometimes, you know, plays into it. But there's always difficult decisions to make when it comes to personnel. Everybody wants to play, and I think as a coach, you just try to, you know, make the decision based on who you feel will give you the best chance to win, based on, you know, practice, preparation, and, you know, how they've historically performed, you know, as a player. So I think it is a challenge, you know, for our offensive line. It was a challenge for them, you know, in the SEC championship game against a very good front seven. They'll have a very similar challenge in this game. You know, I know that I hear from a lot of the folks out there in the media that, you know, the way to have a chance to beat us is to pressure the quarterback. So in many cases, it's important that the offensive line can do a good job of protecting the quarterback and not allowing that to happen so he does have a chance to operate. And we've been most successful when that's been the case. So this is a very challenging game for them.
Coach, your next question is going to come from Taylor Kaufman.
Good morning, Coach. Taylor Kaufman for CBS 42 out of Birmingham. Over the days since you guys have been here, have you noticed a growing sense of eagerness from your team to play this game? I'm sure they're just chomping at the bit to get out there, especially since they decided collectively to stay pretty isolated this week.
Right. Well, I think, you know, when you have this much time between games, when you start practicing way before Christmas, you know, you're practicing, it seems like the game's a long way off. And then when you really finally arrive at the site, you know, you say, wow, you know, this is for real. It's coming up quickly. We have a regular week to go through. And the goal from a coach's standpoint, from our standpoint, is, you know, to get the players, you know, gaining a sense of urgency, a sense of focus, the closer they get to the game, and not having practiced so much, they start getting bored with what they're doing, and I haven't seen that from our team.
Coach, your next question is going to come from Jeff Spiegel from WBMA TV.
Nick, to follow up on what Taylor just asked, how important is it to, stay on task and have a routine when you approach a big game at a big venue like this?
Yeah, well, I think that's the most important thing, keep the main thing, which is the game and how you play in the game. And you determine that by the choices you make, what you choose to ignore, whether it's something you hear in the media, whether it's how you played in the last game, past performance. None of that really matters in this game. It's how you look forward and focus on, what you need to do to be able to execute, do your job, be accountable to your teammates in this particular game. I think having the right mindset and the right focus is very important to being able to play well.
Coach, your next.
All right, that was Nick Saban there giving us a little tidbit and also taking a jab at the media as well with the rap boys. We got a little hint of that there, by the way. But some things to take away from it. He talked about his offensive line and how they can fare against Cincinnati. What did you hear about that? What did you take away from this?
Yeah, I think our offensive line is key to this game and was key against Georgia. There's a tape out there, and you can get it on YouTube, that breaks down the Alabama's offensive snaps in 14 minutes. Take a look at it, because you can see how dominant they were. Evan Neal, a consensus All-American at left tackle, was a bulwark that day. He was fantastic. Not only did Georgia not get much pressure for the first time this season, they didn't get a sack, and their 4 tackles for loss tied for a season low. And the way Alabama did it, they took the pressure off the offensive line. Tempo, 3-step drops, quick routes, and then you have dominant receivers in the secondary, and Georgia's by far weak point is that secondary. So the offensive line really shone in that game.
Yeah, because we saw a reversal in the Iron Bowl where Bryce Young was sacked 7 times, and they were very clean against Georgia. And just to follow up on that point, how much will it help Cincinnati having the standout corners in Sauce Gardner and Kobe Bryant to maybe allow to get that pressure while being able to maybe defend that next tier?
Very interesting in the secondary. Cincinnati by far plays the most man coverage of the 4 teams left in the playoff, about 38% of the time, which is a big number in college football. So what they're saying with that number, I don't expect them to deviate, is out on an island, test us, because we've done it all year. We're the best in the country, at least till now, going one-on-one. Georgia, interestingly enough, plays the least amount of man. Obviously, we know they struggle there a little bit in the secondary. So that'll be a matchup to watch right away with Cincinnati.
Looking at the QB play when it comes to Ritter or Young here, more so a Desmond Ritter dealing with that defense, how important is it to kind of keep his temperament down, knowing that Alabama can come after you, and you can say this is the biggest test he'll face all year?
Yeah, I think Desmond Ritter's going to be fine. I think whatever happens is going to have a standout game. He's been there since 2017. He's a veteran. He's married, has a kid. I mean, he might as well be on the coaching staff by now. I don't worry about Desmond Ritter. Desmond Ritter's not going to cough up the ball 4 times and lose this game for them. I mean, he gives them their best chance to win offensively, and he's a leader. So I think he'll be fine. I'm really curious about Jerome Ford, not questioning him, the dynamic of him playing against his old team. He went to a place that they all do now. They go in the portal and go to a place they can play. He has thrived at Cincinnati. What is the thought of him at Alabama? He could, in his mind, he couldn't make it at Alabama. How motivated, well, he'll be motivated. How motivated will he be to show them what they could have had?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. If you had a chance to call in to Nick Saban's press conference, Dennis, what one burning question would you still have for him here?
I'd talk about the running game. It's not good in terms of Alabama's standard. It's good. Brian Robinson is not, some of the great backs they've had in the past, certainly not Najee Harris, and he's been injured. But I don't know what the word is, concern. How would you evaluate the running game this year? Because it was basically not abandoned against Georgia, but it was emphasized. They ran the ball in the 4th quarter because they were trying to get the game over. They're up by 17 points, so it looks balanced. It wasn't. It was Bryce Young playing pitch and catch all day. So, what do they feel about Cincinnati and being able to drive the ball against a pretty stout defense?
See how that pans out, of course, the closer we get to that game between Cincinnati and Alabama. The conversation will continue. The Cover 3 podcast, the fellas always teaming you up with the semifinal matchups set in the next couple of days. Of course, tomorrow, you might want to dial in and see what these guys are talking about. I guarantee you it's the games this weekend and then heading into the title game. Download and give them a follow. On the other side, we'll have Kirby Smart and Jim Harbaugh. Heard about those two teams going at it, Georgia and Michigan, on the other side.